You sucker!
All right, Milsurp Garage. Thank you, Beer Zerker. Check out the Beer Zerker 80-inch channel for some craziness. Well, what do we got here? We have, looks like we might even have like an 870 here on the table, just by the way this thing looks, right? It shares a lot of the design elements in the 870. Around 1950, when the 870 came out, a lot of Remington's guns look like this. This is a 572, model 572 Fieldmaster. 22 caliber, pump action rifle. So, let's get into it here. I'm gonna, not really going to show you what design elements it shares with the 870. Could have gone down that route with taking them apart and showing what was inside. I thought about that, but then I couldn't fully break this thing down, and I'm going to get to that. I want to explain to you why. So I figured, well, I had no choice but to skip that. And I'm really not, sure myself what design elements. Obviously, the 870 would have loaded through here, and there's there's a cover here. This is probably, I would say, trigger group, and like maybe just like the bolt, the mechanism, the way like the bolt and the hammer function together. We don't think it's got anything to do with necessarily loading, because obviously this is tube loaded like a Remington 870 would, but I just think that the lifter, that type of mechanism, would probably be completely different. But you never know. Maybe they did share some design elements there. It's something for a later video. But yeah, so where did this guy come from? Well, you look back in my videos, you'll see the Remington Model 12, okay? John Pedersen design. It was a 22, pump action 22. And, like it's old school. It's like right at the start of things back there with, these gallery guns, So that Model 12 lasted for quite a while in their repertoire. And in 1936, I think it was somewhere in the mid-30s, they rebranded it the 121. They don't really do much to it. It's just kind of like some of the elements would be cheaper, like the butt plate. Instead of that like curved steel Art Deco looking butt plate, they'll put on just a flat plastic butt plate. The sights might get a little cheaper. Things just they probably make it a little bit more cost effective for them, and they give it a different model number. That you see, that's common around the 30s, like the difference between turn of the century into like the 30s. You'll see that happen with a lot of guns. The Remington 141, wasn't it the 14, was the pump action like 35 caliber, and even that changed. And, they kind of rebrand them as something new, as like a reason to kind of like make it a little bit more affordable for them to make. And now if they're completely changing it, because that 121 that lasted until 1954, they came out with this guy. So now if they're gonna replace it with a different gun of a completely different design, they're gonna come up with a different model number. So 572 was what these things were designated. And in 57, they made some changes in 57 where they wanted to make it a little lighter. It was like a 5-pound rifle, all steel. So you'll see those. You'll see two different ones. There is something interesting in their history in that at first they were made all steel. See, this one isn't. If I take, it's always a good idea to, you checking stuff out. See, it'll stick to the pin, but this magnet won't stick to the trigger guard or the receiver, or even this piece here, this piece forward, but will stick to the barrel. So apparently these Fieldmaster ones, they're called. Now that Fieldmaster name actually came from the 121. I'm gonna here's a picture of the 121 there, and you see the tag on it. Whoever was selling this thing had a Fieldmaster tag on it. That's what it said on the receiver. So that Fieldmaster name was carried over in 1957 to these 572s, and they made the receiver, the trigger guard, the butt plate, which this one is plastic because this one is much later. This is a 78 model. So this is, well out of the 50s. But in the 50s, they had changed over from a steel butt plate to an aluminum butt plate. And even the barrel was aluminum and it had a steel sleeve in it. Now, by the time they got to 78 here, I'm pretty sure, I was looking at it myself, I think that ended. I'm pretty sure, just by the way this magnet sticks to it, that this is fully steel. This isn't an insert, a steel insert, and this is aluminum. This is steel. So this is a Fieldmaster, but they had changed it apparently by 78. Let's get in here a little bit and take a look at some of our markings that are specific to this guy. So you'll see the EQ there. EQ, which breaks down to, if we use our black powder X thing and all that, breaks down to 78. But interestingly enough, you see right next to it, right there, where's my finger? Right there, there actually is a 78 on there, printed straight up on there as the year. And I've never seen that. I've never seen Remington do that. There's the Fieldmaster designation. And one other interesting thing is this checkering. The different models they had here. While I'm on my way to the checkering, let me explain the models. The 572 was introduced. It was an uncheckered hardwood pistol grip grooved forearm. Okay? That one was discontinued in 88. The 572 SB was a smooth bore version. Had the same specs as the 572A except with a smooth bore barrel. That was discontinued in 1979. The 572 BDL or deluxe rifle. That's what this guy is most likely. And it has a ramp front sight with a gold bead, fully adjustable rear sight, modeled after the sight used on the Remington 700 big game rifle, and a higher grade walnut forearm and straight comb buttstock with impressed checkering. Now here's what this impressed checkering is. Check this out. This looks like, you look at it and you go like, yeah, there's checkering there, right? If you look really close, you'll see. Checkering would be, you take the wood and you cut the wood and you leave behind raised diamonds. So you actually would use a tool that just makes slashes in the wood and leaves behind raised diamonds. You would have to have a machine do that, or it being done by hand, but that would be the method, would be like literally cutting the wood and leaving raised nubs behind. If you look really close, there's no raised nubs here. It has the look of it, but it's like a mirror image. This is called impressed checkering. It was a cheaper way to do checkering where you actually had the stock held in something where a machine putting pressure would squeeze this design into the stock. So these aren't little diamonds that are left raised when after the cuts are made. These are little diamonds that are impressioned into the wood. So what's funny is while it does have the look of checkering, see, let me back up a little bit and maybe it makes it easier. It has the look of checkering, but it's actually the opposite. It's having the opposite effect. It's smooth when you feel it. You could tell just by feeling it that it's this type of checkering. There's like a cheaper way to do it, which you wouldn't really mind a cheaper way to do something. You're like, all right, whatever. You're doing it in a cheaper way. I get the gun cheaper. You could make them for for a lower price. There's plenty of higher price stuff, so it's nice if you could do something to get it lower price. That'd be fine. But if you're using a method that's not even like you're trying to fool the consumer into being like, yeah, this is checkered, that's kind of weird. So, but all is not lost, because in my information here, I have that in 1991, so not long after this is in 87, in 91, the walnut buttstock of the BDL version was altered to incorporate a Monte Carlo comb to improve the cheek weld when using the rifle with a telescopic sight, and the impressed checkering was altered to machine cut checkering. In 2017, after complaints that the high Monte Carlo comb made the rifle difficult to use with open sights, wow, that was from 91 to 17, they were complaining. Well, I guess they finally did something about it in 17. They returned to a straight comb buttstock design for current production BDL rifles. I guess that's just the last few years. I assume what they're saying is that they look like this, not the Monte Carlo stock. So, yeah. So, what happened with this one? Why I can't take it apart? Let's break that down. Let's see what I wrote down exactly for this one too. Nothing special. Well, here's that ramp gold bead front sight. Here's that fully adjustable rear sight. See, that's nice here. There's a screw here, a screw there. This slides up and down on the ramp for elevation. Back and forth here. That screw on the top there you can see is for windage. Pretty cool. And here's the screw that you have to take out to take it down. So when you take the screw out, there's like a bushing in here and some other stuff you're not really supposed to screw around with anyway. So maybe it's almost better that it didn't come apart, but it's supposed to, when that's out, and whatever, you follow whatever the directions are for the rest of the elements to take apart. I'm not sure if I guess the trigger group has to come out first. You push these pins out, the trigger group comes out, then this screw, right? It wouldn't separate at all. Now, the deal with this is it looked pretty good on the outside. I was picking up a firearm that I purchased, and this was just kind of laying there. I was like, wow, that's a interesting one that I never really seen much of. This guy, usually I have like a lot of the older ones, but this caught my eye, and the guy just was like, yeah, throw in another whatever. I don't even remember what it was, but it was cheap, and take that with you. So I did. Now on the outside, it looked really nice. It didn't really even need to clean up at all on the outside. This is what it looked like. Might have been like the slightest hint of some speckles of rust starting on the barrel, and just wiping it down with just a rough sponge. You know those sponges with like the blue plastic stuff on the back of the sponge, whatever, that's like supposed to be like a scouring pad, but it's not metal, it's plastic. Those things are awesome. You get a package of those, you put a little oil on it, and you rub when you have that like little teeny specks of surface rust, and it takes that off without even remotely scratching the gun. Just make sure that it's not steel on the back of that sponge. They do make them like that. You got to make sure that it's just plastic, rough stuff on there. So I did that, and everything seemed okay, but trying to take it apart, and then looking, it's like when this was out and the trigger group was off and I could really see in there, it was really, really neglected. So you got to remember too, when you're looking at these things from a collector's perspective of buying them or not, that there's not only varying degrees of neglect, but there's also varying so it's not just the stages of neglect you're looking at. There's also different forms of neglect. There's some people that they would polish their gun every other day, and they shot it a lot because they loved it so much, and they took it out and rubbed it down and kept it from the outside. Like the wood was constantly BLO'd, the steel was always clean and oiled, and it looked great on the outside. But he never, this person, this fictional person, I'm saying, never took it apart and cleaned the inside. And you'd have issues with that where maybe it's not even just like that it's dirty and you go, well, big deal, I'll clean it. You know, if it gets dirty enough and there's corrosive-y enough stuff in there, it could actually compromise parts. Parts could get pitted, rusted, screws could get just bonded in where they're just never coming out again. And it could actually make a gun unusable because of that, because in order to get into some areas to clean it, I mean, you could have a firing pin that just binds up inside of its channel, and that's the end of that. You know, you can't get in there to fix it. See, there's others that they were real crazy about taking the gun apart and cleaning it, keeping it mechanically perfect. But, you know, they kicked it around a lot, bouncing around in the back of a pickup truck. The wood looks like crap. The steel's all banged up. They left it out in the rain, but they would clean the inside. So mechanically, the mechanics of it are all inside, are all mint and perfect, like a fine working machine, like a fine watch. But the outside is neglected and dogged, and you'd have your own whole, you know, series of things to do if you wanted to conserve it. So this was one of the ones where, and 22s get really bad like this. The internals were terrible, but I got it nice, just by, you know, gun scrubber is your friend. And even though I couldn't take it apart, by taking the trigger group out and this plate off, and just what I could access, just blasting it with gun scrubber and compressed air, and then gun scrubber again, and then compressed air, and then some more gun scrubber, and scrubbing with toothbrushes and all kind of brushes. You get it cleaned out enough where it's good, and then oiled. But I could not separate. This was just so bonded that once you start reaching for big enough tools to try to bang it apart, where, you know, you look at the tools that you're grabbing, you go, no, I'm gonna put that, like when you start working your way towards this to make it happen, that's when you got to be like, you know what? I think it's better off where it is. Let's take some of our 22 snap caps here and run them through. Let's run them through. So yeah, we have a twist and out tube. Nice. This one's nice. It doesn't flop around, you know what I mean? So you can tilt it and you don't have to worry about it falling out. Or if you tilt back, so you just drop the rounds and they slide in, you don't have to worry about the tube sliding down behind you. It's nice when it has just enough resistance to not slide, but not enough that when you push it, it binds and it feels bad. That's good. Now, this is always a true test. You know, you've been with me before through this. This is a good test right here. See, that's where we're up against the rounds, and we have, so this whole amount of tube, the rounds have to go inside of it with the spring. So it's always a good true test of how well they put this system together, is how well it does this without binding. Let's see how this one does. See how it bound right there? You got to kind of do a little manipulating. One more round. There you go. So see, it took a couple of little helper pushes, but you know, when you see the real quality ones, like the Winchester 61, it's just like absolutely no hindering there. So yeah, the slide release right here, right where the 870s would be. And I'll tell you, messing with the Mossberg recently, when we did the Mossberg video, I was thinking, like, look how cool that is. It's like Mossberg puts it right here. So your finger's there already. So how convenient is that you're just always right here. You never have to do that reach forward thing. But you know what? When you're in a situation like this where you cycled it and it's locked, this is your go mode. This is where you're carrying, and like except for like maybe that you, by the way, there is a crossbolt safety. You might click on the crossbolt safety here, but you're in go mode. And if this slide were to just suddenly do that on you, or even if it just came loose a little bit, how nice it feeds. Even if it just came loose a little to like there, where when you pull the trigger you get nothing. That's a pain in the ass. And with the Mossberg, you're carrying it like this, you'd constantly be on that button, hitting that button, and you'd be a worry that you're unlocking the slide, basically making it unfireable. I kind of see Remington's idea of putting it up here is that it's in a convenient enough spot when you need to cycle, but it's way out of the way where it's not going to get hit by accident. So when you're in go mode, you could, however you carry it, climbing through bush, whatever you're doing, you're not really up here. And I think that I kind of understand. Let's put it that way. I understand their thinking. It's smooth. It's not hanging up at all. And can we just throw one in and load it? Let's see. Can we throw it in here? Whoops, put it in backwards. Let's see if we could just throw one in. Yeah, we certainly can. Yep, it's you're not gonna get this thing to stumble by however you load it. It's smooth as silk. It is. And you just got to get past the 70s of it all. The impressed checkering and the I can feel a slightly lowered quality from my older ones. You know what I mean? Slightly, with the aluminum, is it cast aluminum? I guess it's cast aluminum. But you do get some lightness, and it's I tell you, it feels like a real rifle, which is what's cool. A lot of these 22s, even with its aluminumness and its lightness, it doesn't feel like you're holding something that's a step down into rimfire. It kind of feels a lot like their other rifles. And I'll put the graphic up again. I'll put the picture up again. This is a few of their regular big bore rifles, and you see how they're all following that same design theme. But this thing has these nice tall sights like this, and target acquisition and visibility is right there, and it's very comfortable. Like the length of pull feels right, and the sight radius feels more like a regular rifle than most 22s. So that's why I like it. And damn, if this wood doesn't look good though, right? Look at that. They sure make it look good. Got a couple of bangs and dings on here. I could rub that out. But this looks like gun rack stuff. This looks like, at the gun store kind of stuff for too long. Sitting right next to another one on the rack. That's what that looks like. But I could buff that out. They always have these 70s Remingtons always have that deep shellac looking stuff going on. But it wouldn't look right stripped. And the wood, bare wood, it wouldn't look right. It looks right like this. Let's put a little touch more TLC, and we're good to go. But so that's it. That's the 572, which is kind of like the Remington 870 of 22s. And I don't know the capacities, but they take short, long, and long rifle. It's right in there. You see the length of the tube. You know where we're at. It's right in there with the rest of them. I think, let me see if I could come up with a number for you. It's 15 long rifles, 22 shorts. So I guess long falls in the middle there, so if you could find longs. But 15 long rifles, that's great. That's right at, that's right in the ballpark there. And yep, so that's that, everyone. I gotta get a shoot going where we get some of these rifles on video, a little range visit. But man, this spring of 2020 is really turning out to be weird. But I'm glad to be able to share some time with you. going a little stir crazy here. At least I get to go out and go to work. I do have an essential job. That's what they call it, essential. But it's good to share some time with you guys. I hope passing the time with another rifle is just what you needed. See you all soon. I think I'm going to come back with another Is It Tactical video. Getting some favorable responses here. At first, people were kind of pissing on it, but now I'm getting some favorable responses, so I'm feeling good about it. I'm going to take another look. I'm going to reevaluate. I'm going to see what we got going on there. Maybe I'll come up with another one. And until then, y'all take care. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Later.
Yeah, sucker!